All right. So we're going to talk about how to adapt your business to survive in these times. You know, even with the title, I want it to be really real and say, you know, this is hard. This is hard. And I think it's a good place to stay emotionally tuned in and be honest about the hardness we're going through. And that's really one of the keys in everything I'm going to say today. Is just be emotionally tuned in to your audience and like what life is for them, because then you can actually be relevant and useful. So how do I get to, okay. So these are some things I want to convey in this workshop. I want to talk about rolling with change. And I want to talk about tuning in to your customer or even your new customers, you know, and staying tuned in, recognizing their changing needs. And like, the situation is changing constantly. You know, even when I started this presentation and like I did it about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, 5 years ago, I have no idea. It's like, it's changed slightly since then. Some of the examples they still work, but they're even have a tiny different feel now than they would, like I might have worded things slightly different then and worded them different now. So the big takeaway here is that I want to convey to you a set of skills that you can use to continue to be adaptable. Because honestly, we might be going through some depression, we're going through recession, we might going through all kinds of crazy, crazy stuff. And that's scary and that's hard. But as small businesses, we just gotta learn to be more adaptable and more resilient. And that skill will help us through all the times, like a little boat that's riding up and down on the waves and not sinking. Yay. So you might want to have some pen and paper handy if you want. You don't need it, and we can also have you put some of the answers into the chat box when there's a couple times where I'll ask for answers, and there's some exercises as we get farther along. So everything in the world of business is actually all about the offer. So the offer is that thing that it's a combination of the packaging of your thing and the thing itself, right? It's like the thing you say, here's the thing I have for you, and then you have to say it has to matter to someone, and you have to be able to talk about it in a way that makes them understand that it matters to them. If either of those two things are off, you are not in good shape, okay? So the offer needs to be relevant, timely, important, and all just so much more important now than ever, because you know people are probably tightening up their pocketbooks, or they're just needing different things, and you know you want to be that one that they still want to pay for, right? So even more important to think about it now. And everything has changed. So now everything is different. So whatever your offer was, 2 months ago, it shouldn't be the same now. So let's talk about change. So what is a pivot? Let's have some answers in the chat box. Anyone that wants to chime in, what do you think of as a pivot in terms of business? How would you define a pivot in business terms? So write your answers in the chat if you have some. So any answers? Not seeing any. That's cool. So oh, here we go. Thank you. Oh, there we go. I was just impatient. So Lena says a new strategic direction, innovation on products or services. Yes. Crystal says adjusting tactics to meet clients' current and evolving needs. Yes. Or even changing your client entirely could be a pivot too. Oh, Sharon, changing your channel. I love that. Naima, using environmental information to adjust delivery. Wow, yeah. Adjust delivery or even adjust like what you do entirely, right? There's some point at which I guess you could say we pivoted so much that we're not even the same business anymore, maybe. But yeah, you can be pivoting. Pivoting is different than just like little teeny tiny little tweaks. Yeah, very good. Nice. Okay, yeah. So who has to pivot now? So guess who has to pivot now? Everyone. I don't care if you're like a government agency, you should still be thinking about pivoting because the world has completely changed, right? And if you're selling beer or dresses or consulting services, you should be pivoting. You should be thinking about how do I pivot? It's really just a matter of how much do I need to pivot and how do I need to pivot? So I'm going to talk about 4 levels of pivot, and I'm going to give some examples at those different levels, and it'll really help, might help you think about sort of what is the scope of what I could do. Like you might be in a position of, you know, people are going to be different places. Someone might be in the position of my business is fine, I don't need to pivot at all. Well, you probably do at least a little bit. You could be in the position of I'm in total shock and I can't even think about how to pivot because everything is, you know, out the window for me right now, and I can still help you think of how to pivot, okay? So there's 4 levels of pivot. One is packaging, so you actually basically could just repackage what you have and change the positioning, the branding of it a little bit to make it relevant to people now. 2 is a platform, so like, you know, maybe you just need to change where you're delivering it. 3 is you've got to change your market a little bit of who you're talking to or how you distribute it. And then 4 is fundamentals, like I'm a massage therapist and I cannot touch anyone right now. So that's an extreme level of pivot. Okay. Oh, and by the way, anytime if you feel like confused or stuck or whatever, or like really need some clarification, please post in the chat box, and I might see it. And if I don't see it, Naima will see it and she'll stop me. Okay. So, all right. So I'm just going to give a few examples of these levels of pivot and how businesses have been pivoting. And then the second part of this presentation is where we're going to get into exercises and actually take you through the 5 steps that I promised of helping you to come up with an offer that matters to people. Yeah, so level 1 is like you might already have like an online business, but maybe it wasn't all online, so you just shifted all online. You know, so then in that sense, you might just need to make sure your branding is tone appropriate. And let's see. And, you know, you might just want to change the packaging to be a little more appropriate, but, you know, that's all you need to do, which can still be extremely important. You might have to change your pricing too. So Thoughtful Human is a really cool business. I highlight her a few different places in this presentation because I really love the way she did things, and I think it's a perfect example of how to pivot your tone, your packaging. It's emotionally appropriate, it's generous, it checks off all the boxes. I've got to call her sometime and tell her how amazing this was. So this came out about, like, I don't know, 5 weeks ago. How time is non-existent anymore, but it came out a while ago. And she sent this email, and actually before she gave this offer, there was lots and lots of free, beautiful stuff that she gave away, which is a really important principle in these times. But when she finally got to an offer, it's a quarantine support bundle for encouragement. So her normal cards are about things like people dealing with depression, or people dealing with cancer, or things like that. And they're just really beautiful and emotionally appropriate cards. So it's not a surprise, I suppose, that she came up with her whole email and her whole offer was like that too. But here's an example of that. Level 2 would be bringing a service online. If you are a therapist or personal trainer, or maybe an after-school educator, and you cannot physically be with people anymore, but this is actually something you can definitely do online, then that is something that you could do. Your challenges are just to attract attention, setting up the tech and creating an appropriate offer, but at least it's possible for you to bring it online. Black to Yoga is a business I learned about 2 months ago. They were at the Evolve Oakland gathering that happened at what was the Impact Hub. And they were a group of Black women who felt that they would go into a yoga class and they would feel like they were alone and they weren't represented, so they created this thing. And so then they built up a whole community, and then they started to do the work online. And I know a bunch of yoga teachers that I've heard they're making pretty good money online. There's advantages to being online. Level 3 is a market or distribution shift, like, that could get a little more extreme, like, some of the people in my market can't afford my thing anymore, but some of them can, or people adjacent to them can, so I need to shift that a little bit. But I still have, a supply of stuff. Or either that, or we've got to get the stuff to them in a completely different way. So Crooked Lane Brewing Company is like it's a relative of mine who has started a brewery up in Auburn several years ago that built a really big community and a really big online Instagram following, which is hugely helpful because now he's constantly doing Instagram and letting people know about the beer delivery, and they're just all kinds of photos of them at the brewery and delivering the beer, and it's like amazing. It's been amazing to see that. Okay, then we get to level 4, which is like, you are in a hard time. I have a friend who's a massage therapist. She cannot work right now. Photographer, esthetician, they cannot work, and it's really tough. So like at that point, you may actually have to think, is our business viable right now? And what do we need to do to make it viable? Maybe it's not viable. Maybe you actually have to look and go, how can I reassemble my skills into some other model, another business actually. And it's possible, that could happen. But just don't forget, you as a group or as an individual, you still have a whole set of talents. And sometimes you really don't realize how much you can put online. One example is my aunt has a personal trainer, and she's like 86 years old, and she can do a 3-minute plank, which apparently is amazing. And so she's had this trainer twice a week for, I don't know, 10 years. And when he went online, but he said, I'll just come on Zoom for you and do it, and still do it with you, do your training twice a week. And he said, but I'm not going to charge you. And she said, no, you can charge me. I'm going to pay you. So it's really important for us to realize that our value isn't only in the fact that we can physically be there. There's a lot of ways to be valuable. Oh yeah, for the record, a 2-minute plank is impressive. Yeah, like my nephew is like 20 years old, and he said it was amazing. And he works out all the time. He said it was amazing. So this is a really cute example. This is a really cute example very early on, where a guy did these portraits from outside, and he just did it as a free service, but it was a really sweet expression of generosity and adaptability that could definitely lead somewhere. He's a photographer, so he just announced on social media that he was going to go around and make these portraits. I mean, it's just really, really sweet idea. There's always a way to adapt. So let's review the ideas of what an offer is, and then we're going to go into the framework of exercises that you can do to apply these ideas. So hopefully that gave you an idea of all the different ways that people can pivot now and that adaptability is really the key to all of it. So, and then what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to take you through the 5 principles and have you apply that to your own business or your own business idea. So again, an offer needs to be relevant to the person you are speaking to, not to anyone else, but to that person. So you got to know who that is. Timely for them. So time is totally different now. Reality is different. Everything has changed, so it has to reflect that. If obviously it could have been relevant 2 months ago and totally irrelevant now, and the whole set of other things is totally relevant now that they would never have paid for in the past. It has to be obviously up in the front burner for them, and it's just so much more important now than ever. And everything's changed, like I just said. Okay, so then we've got our principles here, and there are, okay, you're going to tune into your customer. This is what we're going to do in the 5 principles. And you're going to stay tuned in, recognize their changing needs, and speak to those needs better. And that's what you're going to do in these 5 color-coded principles. And so you can win by helping them win, which is the key to all business. Okay, now we get to the colors. So there's 5 colors, there's 5 principles. And so this work comes out of branding. It comes, you know, which is sort of like how do you package yourself, positioning, market positioning, which, and you know, looks at how do you stand out and how do you be the one they want to see and speak to, and just like general good business principles, being tuned into people. And some of them are also really relevant to the time right now. So empathy is very important, because if you get that wrong, it's like you don't even understand what they need. Tone is really important now because people are kind of traumatized, although that's even maybe shifted a little in the last month, like in the last, how many weeks has it been? Yeah, but it's still true. Generosity is very important right now. Immediacy, immediate gains, probably even that's a little different than it was 6 weeks ago, but it's still true. And offering something that is very structured, something that can help people organize their mind when they're stuck at home or overwhelmed. Okay, so we're going to go over these one at a time. I'm going to speak a little bit about each one and give a few examples of sometimes how it's being done well, and other times how it's being done poorly, so you can see why this matters. So connecting with the emotional situation of your clients and customers. You know, I just put this in because it sounds authoritative, right? According to Harvard research, purchasing decisions are 95% driven by emotion. So you've got to connect with the emotions where people are at. And people are feeling very different. They might be feeling fearful, anxious, concerned about money. Again, I know for me, my whole emotional state has kind of relaxed a little bit, but still those things are going to be happening for people in a huge way. What worked before is not what will work now. That's really the takeaway from all of this, right? Like, do not assume anything will work the same. Tune in, just tune in to yourself and to other people. So emotional intelligence is a crucial skill. Yeah, and so this month, you know, we're still sheltering in place, at least in the Bay Area. What happens next month? Stay adaptive. All these principles are true, as I said, in any business environment. It's just much more important now. And if you're not tuned into the level of change that's happening, you might get sort of blown away, and that might be terrifying for you. So not to scare you, but stay tuned in. You know, what are people feeling right now? Often anxiety, overwhelm, concern for their loved one's health, concern for their own health, concerns for economic future. It's scary, right? It's like, don't push that away. Don't push that away ourselves. It's easy to do. I already noticed that this morning. I was like, oh, I'm feeling pretty great, but I am also papering over a level of emotional stuff that I don't always let myself feel. And it was like, wow, it's so helpful to stay in my heart and feel that stuff too, because my mind has so much fun thinking, but it's like the emotions is where you tune in. All right, so also situational changes. If people are now working from home, completely different set of needs, right? They lost work or business, obviously they're in a totally different situation. They might be homeschooling. How can I serve? To stay emotionally tuned in, ask yourself, how can I serve these people? Always ask, how can I serve? Adapt rapidly to the current situation and help your customers adapt rapidly. Think resiliently, creative thinking, agile strategies, and flexible offers. So obviously that's an ongoing theme for me. Okay, so key is empathizing with your customers, knowing who they are. That's marketing 101. We need to feel what it's like for them, or we will not know how and what to sell to them. You got to get into their shoes, okay? Who is your audience? Okay, yoga class attendees, flower shop customers, dental patients, whoever it is, you can use these principles to craft an offer for them. If you don't have a business right now, or you're curious, then still you could use these same principles to discover opportunities that are emerging in the situation. There's always opportunities. But first, let's practice our empathy skills on one of the following. Okay, so we're gonna do a little exercise, our first little exercise together. And we're going to pick one of these. So you're not going to start by picking your own business. You're going to start by picking someone else's business and empathize with them. Empathize with them. So there's two different examples you can pick from, okay? One is a professional mom who's needing to homeschool her kids for the next 3 months, okay? So you can choose that one. Or you could choose the computer programmer who just went from 0% working from home to 100% working from home. And he's kind of anxious and he doesn't have a lot of coping skills to be able to work and focus from home. These are two examples from my life, by the way, of people that I know. Okay, so everybody just pick one of those and type in the chat box which one you picked. Okay, professional mom, computer programmer, great, awesome. Professional mom, great. Thanks, guys. Okay, so now we're gonna do our exercise. Cool. All right, so the empathy exercise is simply to answer these questions. And you might you could answer them into the chat. You could also answer them on a piece of paper. Let's take a couple minutes on it, a minute at least, to just really feel into what this person's life is like now. And then, so you could end up writing in the chat just like a summary of what that person was feeling like, if you want, however you want to do it, but you'll share them in the chat at some point here. So you're going to answer this question as a mom working from home, or as a computer programmer working from home, entirely from home. My physical situation right now is blank. My emotional state right now is fill in the blank. My greatest need right now is fill in the blank. And I want to feel more, and then fill in the blank. So just let's take a couple minutes to fill this out and just really feel, take a minute to feel go into their shoes, stand in their shoes and feel what it's like to be them. And then when you have something there, don't have to take too long, but just take enough time to kind of feel them, and then put that in the chat box. From Sharon, homeschool mom, my physical condition, I am tired all the time. Yeah. One of my family members she has a good job and she has a lovely home and she's supposed to be working all the time and she has a 9-year-old boy and it's just the two of them plus a brand new puppy and some foster cats. So it's kind of tough though. Overwhelmed emotionally. Yeah. Yeah, totally. As a computer programmer working from home, my physical condition right now is moderate. My emotional state right now is wired and anxious, but I also recognize that adapting may be less labor intensive as other industries. My greatest need is time away from my screen and human interaction. I want to feel more balanced. Yeah, that's awesome. And then the other thing in this actual example that inspired that is I know someone who is a very successful programmer and he hates working from home because he's never been good at it. He cannot focus. He's getting paid well, but it could be really stressful too because if you're like, I can't focus now, I don't know how to focus at home and the work in my home office, like he's not getting any work done and that could really make you anxious, especially right now. Okay, Sharon, I have 3 kids who need me all the time. I would like support from other family members. Yeah. Um, Maite, this mom is exhausted and stressed. She needs time and support. She wants to feel centered and calm. Awesome. Crystal, I'm a computer programmer suddenly working at home 100% of the time. I thought I'd have to work less since I no longer commute, but I work more and accomplish less. I can't separate my work life from my home life, and that makes both unsatisfying. I want to feel a sense of accomplishment from both. I need to clarify. Interesting, challenging to read the chat box as it's coming along, isn't it? um, I want to feel a sense of accomplishment. I need to clearly define my daily goals so I know how to plan my day. Yeah. Mom, my physical situation right now is chaotic and full. My emotional state right now is anxious and overwhelmed. My greatest need is space to focus and rest. I want to feel more supported and reassured that I don't need to do it all. Awesome. Sharon, I would like to connect with the outside community. Yes. So this is awesome, you guys. So you can start to see all kinds of business opportunities in there, right? I mean, frankly, like there could be all kinds of ways to create a support system or help people focus. I mean, there's all kinds of opportunity in that empathy, right, of how to help people. It's awesome. Very good. So the second piece I want to talk about is tone. Let your language and approach tune into the moment appropriately. Um, if you're sounding unaware of the crisis, you're going to sound totally irrelevant. I'm sure you've heard of, seen ads and you're like, what world is this coming from? If you sound opportunistic now, you're going to be offensive to people. We're all in this together must be the voice because we actually are all in this together and this actually is a thing we need to solve together. Like it's not just a marketing slogan, it's actually true. And we're all feeling more collective, so speak to the we. Show how you can help now or you will be ignored. Okay, I've got a couple of corporate examples that are bad examples. They really bug me, and it took me a long time to figure out why this one bugs me on NPR all the time. It says support for NPR comes from Trello, blah, blah, blah. During these uncertain times, Trello is here to help teams work together to solve big challenges. So I don't know about you guys. Type your opinions of how that emotionally strikes you in the chat box if you want to. How does it feel to you? To me, I hate it because it's like uncertain times. Uncertain, uncertain. Are you serious that it's uncertain? I mean, it's like I could be, I'm uncertain about whether I'm going to eat a hamburger or a stir fry. I'm uncertain about whether I'm going to go north or south. And this is not uncertain. This is a freaking mess. And it's like you're so emotionally untuned in, you cannot notice that. And I think it's really awful. So then it sounds really, really inappropriate. Another one is ZipRecruiter. I'm going to pick on during this time of change. We want you to know the ZipRecruiter focus does not change. So my theory about both of these is that they are tech companies, not to oversimplify, but tech people are not necessarily the most emotionally tuned in people. And you know, they may not have noticed. So Julia said, it sounds like they just threw in a few words to introduce their normal marketing slogans. Exactly, they did. They didn't know what to do. There is this really funny thing. Later, if you Google, every COVID-19 commercial is exactly the same. There's this hilarious video where someone like, you know, typed all this stuff up together. Lena, it's reflective of how well tech is doing during the well, yeah, I mean, there's having a lot of layoffs too. But definitely, Lena, that's one of my reactions. It's like, oh, you think you're fine? Well, everyone's not fine. Are you just happy in your ivory tower and like not tuned in to what's going on for people? I mean, in fact, for some tech companies, I mean, Uber has just had massive layoffs and Airbnb is having massive layoffs, but yeah, I could totally relate to that. I'd also offer many times for large organizations, boilerplate communications is the safest bet on their end. Yeah, they played it safe. So then like here with this one, it's like, it's sort of like uncertain times, we're here for you. Yeah, if you Google this, every COVID-19 commercial is exactly the same. This is absolutely hilarious. You know, Uber, Airbnb, whatever companies. A really good example, actually, I'm going to give a funny corporate example first and come back. So Coors Light actually had a great video, okay? Like, you know, you can say what you want about Coors Light, but they had a great tone. And it was really, really good. It was like, you know, fighting a revolutionary war can be sucky. I'm just taking little snippets from it. How about the Great Depression? It's like a 3-minute commercial, but turns out that was pretty sucky too. Which brings us to today. Sucky suckiness of historical proportions. And it was just so much better, you guys, to have them tune in to like, hey, this sucks, than to try and wallpaper over how much it sucks. It was just so much better. It's not the only approach you have to take, but if you just drop down to someone's emotional level and say, hey, this sucks, this is hard. It's so, you could reach people so much better than you could ever reach them by trying to be all polite and everything. Sometimes you have to embrace the suck. Exactly. So real quick, other examples. Yeah, thoughtful human again, just real quick, like this was her subject line at the top. Hey, hi, checking in. I don't know if it's just me, but like she's so emotionally tuned in to emotionally sensitive people, and I'm one of them. And it's like just the lowercase, the periods, the like not pushing anything too hard. And this is also like a week in or 2 weeks in, by the way, too, where we were all in like total shock. It was just absolutely beautiful. And then the entire thing was generous all the way through. Yeah. Okay, so let's do this real quick. So we're gonna take the first example. We'll at least have time for the first example. So write the sleaziest opportunistic headline you can think of and put it in the chat. And if you want to do the other two, you can do those two. We'll just see how much we have time. We probably have a couple of minutes for this. So at least do one and then try to do number 3 if you have time. Sharon, did you have a question?
No, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, drink
I see
bleach.
Sharon's chat box entry and I just fell over laughing. I just had to
Oh,
unmute myself for that one.
yeah, miserable us too. Sign up for our newsletter for support resources. Yeah, that's getting somewhere. That's getting somewhere. Yeah. Escape being stuck at home by acting on the fantasy of your next vacation. Book your next trip with us now. Yeah, that's a very untuned. Yeah, exactly. That's very much like, don't you know I have bills to pay? Don't you know this is like, yeah, good. That's great. Julia said, ooh, Crystal, that's so good. You can certainly get the idea here, right? It's like, all there's an art to writing headlines, there's an art to writing copy, but if you're not emotionally tuned in to people, then you're just not going to reach them. It's going to seem weird. I mean, it makes me want to buy Coors Light, that thing, even though I don't think I'm going to buy Coors Light, but it's pretty awesome though. um, uh, and okay, so the next principle is generosity. Chat. Okay, great. There's a couple more here. Use Lysol for COVID-19 solutions. God. Julia, 401k down, invest in Bitcoin. Yeah, exactly. Right. That's perfect. That's a perfectly sleazy, like, I don't know your world, disgusting spam type of thing. Yeah, exactly. Great. Don't be a couch potato. Get that summer bod now. Yeah, exactly. That's great. I don't know what's going on. So I'm just kind of moving on a little faster so we can, make sure I can get through all of them too. So generosity is very important now. Approach everything with an we're all in this together attitude, and lead with giving. I saw that from the very beginning. People that did this, it just felt right. Like we are in this together. Like I said, I mean, it's we have to be. Crisis has pushed everyone to realize their interdependence. Give something more. What I've seen is when people would just make the same offer, like, during this time of change, Trello is here with our free trial of our software. Well, yeah, the free trial, everyone knows your free trial is always there, and like you're just selling your damn software, pardon me. Like, so not helpful at all. Like, but different companies used it as a marketing opportunity, frankly, and gave away stuff. Sometimes it cost them theoretically, but did bring good name to them, and that's good. That's better. That's better than not. Frontier Airlines is offering $11 flights to anywhere. Oh my gosh. I mean, it's so interesting, but it's also, I mean, are they for later or are they for now? Because it's not necessarily good to be encouraging people to fly now. Yeah, I was thinking it might be kind of cool to like fly to New Zealand and just like go in quarantine for 2 weeks and then just like be in New Zealand. So you just want to think of ways you can be more generous that don't necessarily cost you a lot, right? Because it really will help you. And sometimes it could even cost you a little bit, but just like giving will tune you into the moment. This is such a silly little example, but Cricket, like, I don't know, a few weeks into this or a week into this, said, oh, we're going to give you 10 more gigs of free data. And like, it totally helped. I mean, I don't think it hurt them at all. It helped. It just made me think, oh, Cricket's kind of cool. Didn't hurt them. There's an acupuncturist who was like, oh no, I mean, it's actually a company or a woman that helps acupuncturists be more successful in their businesses. And so she has this online business training acupuncturists how to do that. And so she immediately started making these scripts to help acupuncturists have virtual sessions. And what are all the things acupuncturists could do to have a virtual session? And there's a bunch of things they can do, even though they can't do the needles, right? And that was strategic thinking. It was resilient thinking. It was like, okay, my job is to help acupuncturists be successful. They are probably freaking out right now. What could I do to help their life be better? And it actually obeys so many of the other principles too. It's generous, the tone is right, and it's also giving them structure, which is coming out a little, it's the last of the 5 principles of just like, oh my God, they're gonna be overwhelmed. Overwhelmed people need structure more. So I'm gonna give you the script to do it. Brilliant. Thoughtful human, again, in that same email, gave these wonderful downloadable signs that you could use to communicate with your neighbors and your mail people and all that, even if you couldn't talk to them. Isn't that beautiful? It's like a PDF download. It hardly took anything, but it was such a gift from her to everyone. So these are the signs. And then somehow she got this free online therapy offer thing. Like, I mean, she put that in there. I already told you about these. So I'm gonna leave, I think, do we have time to do this? Let me see, we've got, yeah, I will probably just, we won't do the exercise now so we can kind of like, have time to wrap up, but you could definitely do this after. What's one thing you could offer your customers for free at little cost to you that feels tone appropriate and speaks to their needs right now? Or something you could discount or give a chunk of free for now that would turn into the moment. So just, think about those as you go throughout your day. Immediacy is the 4th principle. And when this all first happened, I was really thinking about it. Like, I was in total shock of like, okay, how do I help someone get through the next 6 weeks? But I think it's still true now. It's a little less true now, probably. People are kind of into a certain rhythm. So it's more like, what's the new quote unquote normal for the next however little bit of time it is. But still, easy to understand offers, clear, actionable, buy it now feeling stuff that neatly resolves some immediate need. I would say this is less true now than it was 6 weeks ago. Price for easy purchase, make it a no-brainer, and like short time frame. So yeah, again, I think people are probably starting to think about, I've gotten through the first 6 weeks of this, how do I get through the next 8 weeks or the next 3 months of what things going to be? So I might change this, even we might be able to say the next 3 months or the next, yeah, that might be what it is now. A good example is a life coach could become a productivity consultant. So it's like you're not helping people with their self-development needs necessarily at the top of the pyramid. You're saying, I can help you get through your day so you don't lose your job by coaching you on time management. And that's still very relevant now for as long as people have to work from home. And then what component of your offer will meet people's immediate needs now? So again, take that home with you, think about it, and just kind of mull that over of how you might be able to use the immediacy quality to help people just right now and feel, should it be a 3-month offer to help them get through the next 3 months? How can you help people? And then the last one is structure. Offer clear, organized packages that help to guide and ground people. Again, I think we were in initial shock. We've kind of gotten through initial shock. Now, some parts of the country are actually trying to get beyond it and like are in total denial, probably, I would guess to some degree. But like, like how can you help people feel like they definitely still need structure? Anyone with overwhelm needs very structured things. very often the reason you can't sell something to them is because it's not neatly structured. It's not clear enough. Focus Oakland did a great thing where they have an online version now of working with people, and I think it's like $40 maybe for a morning of just helping to get some focus online, which is really valuable. So again, think about how you could use structure in your business and make something that's appropriate structure. And that's it. So basically, I don't have a big offer at the end, except I'd love to chat with you. Happy to talk. If there's a group conversation that wants to happen out of this, that could be cool too. Go to chrisburbridge.com and just fill out my form and just say hi, and I'll set up a time with you and we'll just talk. I really love being off of Zoom, actually, a lot of times, and just taking a walk and being on the phone. And I'd love to talk with you about your business idea and get to know you